Hello everyone and welcome to another Halloween Season review. Today I'm reviewing an expansion for the game Unearth. This came out a while ago now, but this is published by Brotherwise Games. And this expansion is actually 3 expansions in one. Comes in a box a little bit smaller than the base game Unearth box. And you'll see here the little indentation there. It comes with this really cool little figurine, which has no real purpose in the game itself. The instruction booklet says to provide inspiration. I think they're really, it's really cool. And in the solo mode, it is one of those things though, actually, where there was a couple times while I was playing, and if you need to step away or something, it could be actually useful in the solo mode to basically remind you that, it's your turn, you're in the middle of your turn, or you can put it over there, signifying that it's, the darkness's turn or the game's turn. So actually, I found a good use out of it that way, but other than that, it just looks really cool. So what else comes in the box? I'll go ahead and show you that, kind of what it adds to the base game and my thoughts on the expansion itself. First things first, I already talked about that little guy. Everything can fit inside the base box just great. It has some more cards, which we'll talk about, some more dice and tokens, and everything fits in the box, no problem. And I really appreciate that. So everything fits in the base box very nicely. And that's the first thing I really appreciate and enjoy about the expansion itself. This box has some really great additions in here. But it all fits in the base box, so I'm gonna go ahead and I will be tossing this box that the expansion actually came in. So that's a really big positive for me for the expansion, that it can fit in the base box. Okay, so you have the rule book here, which talks about the different additions to the game here. So base game enhancements, that's the first thing here. It adds a couple more end of age cards for variety there. One of the big things here in the game, if you've played, I'm figuring you at least somewhat familiar with the game Unearth. When you are rolling dice to claim ruins, in the game, we have our ruin out here. It's got a couple of stones on there. Anything, if I go ahead and roll a dice and it rolls a 4, that's like the most frustrating roll you can have in Unearth. Why? Because you need a 1, 2, or 3 to claim a stone. And you need the highest number die on a single die to be able to claim this ruin. And so a 4, you're like right in the middle. It is a higher number than a 1, 2, or 3, but it's not a 5 or a 6, right? So 4s can be very, very frustrating. And they have included, I've pulled these all out of my Delver deck, but you can go ahead and shuffle these in. And what they do is they're kind of these kind of response type cards for when someone rolls a 4. And that's the only time that these can really be triggered. And you can basically go around the table, and people can, if they choose to, if they would like to, play one of these response cards. So we can just kind of go through a few of these to get you a feel, give any other die +2 or -2. Got a few of those. There's take a stone from the ruin where the 4 was rolled. So I like that one. It's kind of a sneaky element, and you don't even have to have any dice there. It's just like, oh yes, free stone. So we have those, which are cool there. Second chances is re-roll any other die already on a ruin. So re-rolling dice. So there's, again, a few different ones there, 3 different ones with some numbers. You go ahead and shuffle these into your regular Delver deck for those. And so those are fun. It makes that kind of the dread of rolling the 4 a little bit unique, in that you can play these Delver cards out of it, right? Okay, so what else do we have here? There are these really cool, let's see, I don't think I actually have the 3rd type pulled out here. Let me find one here. So there's some new stone types that add to the game here. And they're colorless stones. So, you know, in the base game here, we have these basic colors here, yellow, we have the red and the kind of the teal, and we have a black and all those other normal ones. Well, in this game, you can play with these other special stones. And so really cool abilities associated with each of these. The memory stone here is, if you take this stone, you actually get to draw 2 Delver decks from the deck, cards from the deck. This one here, let me remind myself how they call it. They call this one the Phantom. The Phantom here is basically a wild, so it can be any color, which can really help with, you know, trying to get these wonders, either the named wonders or just, you know, the lesser or greater wonders. Very helpful, but it does come with a penalty. So each one of these that you have at the end of the game are -1 point. So very helpful to get exactly what you need there, but it will also give you a minus point. The other one here is the Warp Stone, and the Warp Stone is double-sided as well, because this is going to allow you at any point after you've claimed stones, even if you've completed a ring, but before you've claimed, you know, a wonder, you can actually flip this stone, and this is the used side of the Warp Stone, and you can swap any 2 stones that you have laid out. And so that can be very, very powerful as well, and very cool ability once to flip that over and be able to do that. Now you may wonder, okay, so these are colorless, they have these abilities, but what about, you know, these ones that call for certain colors? Well, it's just that these cannot be, so other than this one here, right? So this one can be any color to match any of those. Whereas these basically have to be like the question marks, right? They cannot be anything else. They have to be the question marks. That can't be part of, you know, a set of like 3 colorless stones or something like that, okay? So those are the new stones, and there are, like I said, 3 different types, and there's 6 of each that you can go ahead and put into the game itself. Okay, the game also comes with 9 new wonders, named wonders, and 1 each of the basic stones. So you just get a few more stones to add to the back, which is really great. It comes to that's kind of the first, you know, just enhancing the game with kind of these new stones, these 3 new stones, and these response cards is really, really huge. And then just some other variety to the game, which is awesome. The other thing that this game does, you may notice these are different color than what's provided in the base game. You actually have components here to add a 5th player to the game. And so in order to play with 5 players, you can have someone have one of these purple set of dice, which are really great. And this new set of ruin cards. So it adds another set of ruin cards to the game, more than just the 5 that was in the base game. You can play 5 players, you shuffle these into the ruin deck as well, or you could play a longer 4-player game with these as well. They do include some updated cards, reference cards as well. which I appreciate. The different sets. So for the base one, if you were to get one of each, you'd get 5 points. And if you get all 6 with playing with the the updated one, you actually get plus 10 points for each set of those as well. Yeah, so a little updated cards there for you as well for that 5th player game. So now the solo mode. I know a lot of people may be interested in learning how this solo mode works here. There's quite a few different things going on. You set up basically for a 2-player game. There's going to be some very little other things that you're going to have to do, but basically you're setting up for a 2-player game. And you'll also notice the game comes with these 4 black dice. Now they look really cool. The black with the red dots, the red pips, really cool looking dice for the darkness, for the theme. Everything fits, I think, really well there. Yeah, so basically when you're flipping over, you're going to start with, one of the dealt cards to you. But what's interesting is as you have the cards, the ruins dealt out here, you're going to go ahead and put, the stones. You're going to draw stones from the bag like normal. But then you're going to roll one of the 4 darkness dice to put on it. Now, if you roll a 1, 2, or 3, you're immediately going to be placing this stone onto this the darkness board here. And if not, then it's just going to sit there, right? And it's the darkness, or the game, if you will also have the opportunity or ability to claim these ruin cards and get points from the ruin cards as well. Basically, in the solo mode, you're going to play until all the ruins cards are claimed. You're not going to be playing with any of the kind of the end of age cards. You can, once you've shuffled in these, special Delver cards, those will also be included. But you will go ahead, you'll start with a couple of Delver cards, and every single time the game, the darkness claims a ruin, you will be able to draw a Delver card, as well as if you had, if you had a die here as well, you would be able to claim a Delver card as well. And so the gameplay is going to feel very, very similar with that regard. And on your turn, it's basically unchanged. You're going to be able to play Delver cards if you wish, and then you're going to choose a die and roll to add it to one of the ruin cards. You'll have 4 out here, like in a 2-player game. And you go ahead and take, if you roll 1, 2, or 3, you take the stone. You're going to build these wonders as normal. But then where it gets, where the game turn for the darkness here comes to, there's this darkness deck of cards. And the darkness deck here includes, I can't remember exactly the number, but it includes the different ruin types, right? So I think there's 1, 2, 3, I think there's 4 of each of the 5 types. So you have 20 darkness cards. Yeah. Okay. And so on the darkness turn, basically what you would do is you just flip over one of these cards and you add it to what's already out in the row here. I just finished actually playing a solo game, which I happily won 49 or 48, I think, to 40. So came out on top there. And so again, it was close. I was actually, I was feeling pretty good, and then I got a little worried. And so the feel of that, I played on just the normal mode. And I felt pretty comfortable with my win, but it wasn't a blowout. So I feel like it's pretty good there, and they have some different ways you can control the difficulty, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But So on your turn, basically, you're going to be flipping over one of these cards. If at any point you flip over the third, you have 3 of the same type of terrain. Basically, you're going to be taking, oh, sorry about that. You're going to be taking the card as signified here. So, you know, if I had 3 of these caverns come up, then this reminds me, I'm going to have the darkness here is going to claim the leftmost cavern, and then they would actually claim this card and go to their end game scoring. The other thing that happens here is whenever a ruin is claimed, either by yourself or the darkness actually gets one of the stones from that card. So it's one of the strategies here is actually to try to get rid of the stones from the card before it's claimed. That way the darkness isn't getting a free stone there. If there's more than one stone when it is claimed, you as the player get to choose which stone is claimed there. Now, if you want to make it more difficult, that's something else you could do, is you could actually, in this situation, I'll describe this in a minute, but I could be like, well, I'm going to have the darkness claim this redstone since they've already forged this crystal. It would actually go down here on the corruption track. If you want to make it harder, you can kind of play as the darkness, right, and take what's most advantageous for I was going to say the computer, the game, right? So it would be more advantageous. The game would get 10 more points for taking that yellow instead of 3 more points. So you can do that to make it more difficult as well. But yeah, so as the game progresses, at the end of the game, they're going to score points for sets, just like the player does. So you'll want to kind of watch that and keep the darkness from claiming a bunch of the same types. Now, it's a little, because of the cards and stuff, it's a little more varied. And so it's a little bit harder for the darkness to get more points from claiming the ruins. And because it's not getting maybe as many points from claiming the ruins because it's a little more random, they're not building these other wonders. What they're doing, they can actually get points from the stones that come to this board. So this kind of helps helps the game come up with more points because they're maybe not, strategically claiming the ruin cards and building these wonders comes from this. And it's kind of a timing mechanism as well, and makes some interesting choices in, the solo game of, what do I try to get these stones off first, or do I try to get a certain colored stone to meet the requirements for a certain wonder? Or do I simply claim stones to keep the darkness from being able to forge, as many crystals as they can, or keep it from getting to the board in general? Okay, so whenever a stone gets moved to the board, it would usually come to forge one of these crystals first. Now, if the crystal is already forged, it already has 3. It takes 3 stones. Then it would come down here to the corruption track and fill in a slot there. Now you'll notice at the end, I'm going to pull this so you can see a little bit better. So if at the end they're able to forge 1 crystal, they would get 6 points, 2 crystals, and so on. So it goes on up. If they're able to forge all 4 of these, they would get 30 points from being able to do that. Any extra crystals, so once this is all filled, or we had mentioned and introduced colorless stones, then the colorless stones don't go up here. They automatically go down to this corruption track, or any additional. So if I already had 3 black, the black would come down, the black stone would come down here as well. Now I mentioned, variability for difficulty. It actually has a nice reference here on the board itself. So this first this first spot actually for the normal mode can hold 3 stones. So it piles up, 1, 2, 3, before the 4th stone would then come here on this one, and the 5th stone, etc. And then it also stacks here on the end. So at the end, if you fill up 3 and then it goes into here and you have a stone here, they're going to get the darkness here will get 6 points from the corruption track. And as it goes along, it'll have 20 points, and then this piles up and it will get plus 5 points for each extra stone in this space. So you can see one way to make the game a little more difficult is actually to change this. So you can play on hard mode and place this holds only 2 stones before it starts moving up, or legendary, you just play with 1 stone and then it moves up. And that definitely makes it more difficult. When I played my solo game just now, I had it on the 6 and they were able to forge 3 of the 4 crystals. But I was still able to come up on top. Now, I already had 3 stones there. If you think about that, shifting it over, I would have lost the game if I had played on hard mode. And so, yeah, I think that scales really well, and very nice quality components, again, from Brotherwise Games. And that's the primary kind of solo mode, is you have this board, and you have the dice that are rolled each time a new ruin comes out. The darkness will roll one of their dice and place on there, claim the stones if it's a 1, 2, or 3, and leave it otherwise, and kind of move on there. But these darkness cards really handle them claiming. That's how the darkness claims these ruins. So when there's 3 of the same type that's out in the row, the 3rd one, you'll actually look to see what it does, and sometimes it will change. We'll say, okay, the furthest left or the furthest right of that type. And then you would take those 3 of the same type, shuffle it back in to the deck, and you would leave out any of the other cards that are still out there. The other thing that can trigger is when you have one of each of the ruin types out here. Then you actually do this thing on the right, and you claim the ruin shown here, either the furthest left, or the second one from the left, or the second one from the right, that sort of thing. And then you take one of each of those types and shuffle them into the deck and put them back there. Now, you may actually have a situation where you have 5, or you have something like that, and there isn't that ruin type out here. There's no desert in the middle to be claimed. On that case, you just take simply that last one and you put it on the bottom of the deck, and you draw a stone at random from the bag and add it to the darkness board. One more thing to show you here. Like I said, this is there's a lot in this expansion with all these different modules. We just talked about the solo mode, and the other thing that this has is some solo campaign scenario cards. And what this does is add some variability to that solo game for you, and you add some rules in here actually as well for kind of a campaign mode where you play 3 solo games in a row, and you can play with these different solo scenarios. And basically, you play the game. After the first one, you're able to keep like one of the named wonders that you have with that, keep that ability going into the second game. And then you have the second one, you're going to keep another one. And so add some cool variety and kind of a campaign mode for the solo mode, which is, I thought was a pretty cool idea. But yeah, some of these scenarios also make it more interesting maybe, and more challenging as well. Play with 2 fewer named wonders and no greater wonders available, so it limits your wonders there. After the darkness roll, any stones are collected, you actually set there. So the darkness could roll, a 2, claim a stone, and then you have to set it to a 6. So then you're battling with that. And it was interesting in my solo game, I actually was playing, I happened to roll lots and lots of 6s. Anyway, Dark Forge, when a ruin is claimed, the darkness takes an extra stone from the claimed ruin. So it may have 2 or 3, they would actually get more stones. So you'd really want to try to collect as many stones as you can before those ruins get claimed. Defend the vaults, place an extra stone on each ruin. So again, that's maybe nice for some more selection, but it makes it so that it's more of an opportunity that the darkness will be claiming more and more stones. At the start of the game, draw 6 extra Delver cards, total of 8. You do not draw Delver cards when ruins are claimed, so you kind of have a set amount. This one here, -2 to all of your D8 rolls. So, that D8 is really, really nice trying to claim those ruins, but that makes it a little more challenging. And last stand, at the end of the game, lose 4 points for every named wonder that was not built. Sometimes those named wonders can be pretty challenging to build, and so kind of another encouragement of maybe gathering more stones. But that timing mechanism is also pretty interesting because you can look up here and say, okay, there's 2 forests and 2 mountains out there. There's no mountains out here right now. So maybe I want to try to get this forest before they claim it. And so there's kind of some interesting decisions in the solo mode of being able to somewhat see the strategy of the opponent. And like I said, I think it works really well. I think the ability to vary the difficulty is really nice with this simple mechanic here. And one thing that I would maybe try playing around with a little bit more is if you're finding it too easy still at some point, you can actually make it so, yeah, you can choose this stone as the player to add it to the board. That makes it more strategic, of how to do that. But if you want to make it more difficult, you can make it so that whatever choices you're making for the darkness is actually the most advantageous for the darkness, and make it that much more difficult on yourself. So that is Unearth the Lost Tribe. This video went a little long, but like I said, there's a lot of different things in here. Wanted to talk about each of them. I think the Colorless Stones and the Enhancements, just the variability is really great, but the Colorless Stones and those Delver cards, the response cards, really, really great addition to the game. I really like that. Having another 5th player, for me, that's, I probably won't play with 5. Nothing against the game at 5, I don't think, but I just don't see that player count happening very often for me. But I do like the purple dice, and that ability, and to play a longer game here with the additional ruin cards. Those aren't them. Additional ruin cards here, I think is really, really nice. And then, of course, the solo mode, which I think is really, really well done and plays well. It's really not that much more complicated. You're going to have a little upkeep with shuffling, that deck of cards here and there. But it really is very manageable as a solo game, and I think works really, really well. And that is how Lou sees it for Unearth the Lost Tribe.